Try to imagine this. A man standing at the very peak of power, he conquered rival kingdoms, unified vast territories, turned former enemies into subjects, and created a title that had never existed before emperor, but after gaining almost everything, he became obsessed with something no army could defeat. Death. This is the story of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to unify China, more than 2,200 years after his death. Thousands of terracotta soldiers still stand silently underground, as if they are guarding their master, but the most fascinating part is this. The terracotta army may only be the outer gate, deep beneath a massive burial mound near Xi'an. Archaeologists believe there is still a central tomb that has never been opened. Inside could be secrets that no one has ever seen. So who was Qin Shi Huang? How did he unify China? Why was a man with almost unlimited power so obsessed with immortality? And most importantly, what is really hidden beneath his tomb after more than 2,000 years? We're going to uncover the story of one of the most mysterious figures in Chinese history, from a boy king to China's first emperor 159 BC. A boy named Ying Zheng was born during one of the most turbulent periods in Chinese history. This was the era known as the Warring States. China was not yet a unified country. Instead, powerful kingdoms such as Qin, Seichu, Zhao, Wei, Han, Yan, and Qi fought one another for survival and supremacy. War had continued for generations, and in the middle of this chaos, Ying Zheng became king of Qin when he was only about 13 years old, a child, but the world waiting for him was anything but peaceful. One mistake could bring down an entire court, rather than accepting a permanently divided China. Ying Zheng began building a massive military machine. The Qin armies marched against one rival kingdom after another into 30 BC. Han was defeated, then Zhao, then Wei, Sieku, Yan, and finally Khiton into 21 BC. The conquest was complete. Ying Zheng became the first ruler to unify much of China. The title king was no longer powerful enough to describe his position, so he created a new title, emperor, and called himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor wanted to turn after unifying China. Qin Shi Huang did not stop. He wanted everything to be standardized, the writing system, currency, weights, and measurements, government administration, roads, laws. A massive empire could not function efficiently if every region used different systems. So Qin Shi Huang began transforming former independent kingdoms into a single political machine. But the price was enormous. Millions of people were forced to work on imperial projects. Roads were built, palaces were constructed, defensive walls and fortifications were expanded, and somewhere else, an even more extraordinary project was quietly taking shape. Qin Shi Huang's tomb, a tomb that began when he was only 13. This may be one of the most astonishing details of all. When Qin Shi Huang was still very young, preparations for his final resting place had already begun. Think about that. A boy had just become king, yet instead of thinking only about the future, he had already begun preparing a tomb for himself, and this was no ordinary tomb. Qin Shi Huang apparently wanted to take the world he had conquered with him into the afterlife. If he had an empire above ground, then there will be palaces, armies, horses, chariots, symbols of imperial power, and perhaps even rivers. But these rivers were not made of water, according to ancient records. They were made with something far more dangerous. Mercury, the Terracotta Army, soldiers who never died. In 1974, a group of farmers near Xi'an were digging a well. They had no idea that only a few feet beneath the ground, they were about to uncover one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. They found a fragment of a terracotta figure, then a soldier, then another, and then thousands. Archaeologists discovered an enormous underground army. The warriors were nearly life-sized. There were infantry, soldiers, generals, horses, chariots, weapons. They were arranged in carefully organized military formations. But what was even more remarkable was this. Many of the faces were different. Each soldier appeared to have his own features. Some looked young, others looked older. Some appeared stern, others seemed ready to march into battle, and all of them were standing there, silent, motionless, as if they were still waiting for an order from an emperor who had been dead for more than 2,000 years. But the Terracotta army may not be the most mysterious. This is where the story becomes even more fascinating. The Terracotta army has been excavated. The bronze chariots have been studied. Many parts of the mausoleum complex have been explored, but the central burial chamber of Qin Shi Huang has never been opened. In other words, we have seen the soldiers guarding the tomb, but we have never truly entered the place where the emperor himself was buried, and that is the chamber that archaeologists are treating with extreme caution. Rivers of mercury beneath the earth. According to the ancient historian Qin, the tomb contained rivers and seas represented by mercury. The tomb was supposedly designed as a miniature version of the world. Above was the sky, below was the earth. Rivers represented the waterways of the empire, but the most remarkable detail is this. Modern studies have detected unusually high concentrations of mercury in the soil surrounding the burial mound. That makes the ancient account even more intriguing. However, we need to be clear, no one has actually seen rivers of mercury inside the central burial chamber. The chamber has never been excavated, so this remains one of the greatest mysteries surrounding the tomb. Did the tomb contain deadly traps? There is a famous story that the tomb was protected by mechanical crossbows. Anyone who entered could be struck by arrows fired from the darkness. It sounds like something from a Hollywood movie, but the story has roots in ancient historical accounts. The problem is, we still cannot enter the central chamber to verify it. So did these traps really exist? We simply don't know for certain, and that uncertainty makes the story even more intriguing. What was Qin Shi Huang most afraid of? Not armies, not enemies, not rebellion, but death. After unifying China, Qin Shi Huang became obsessed with finding ways to extend his life. He believed there might be a substance capable of granting immortality. Alchemists and scholars were sent in search of mysterious remedies, but a disturbing irony emerged. Some ancient remedies may have contained mercury. Today, we know that mercury is highly toxic. Some historians and researchers have therefore suggested that his obsession with immortality may have contributed to his declining health. Of course, the exact cause of Qin Shi Huang's death remains debated, but the irony is impossible to ignore. The man who wanted to defeat death ultimately could not escape it. And then his empire colla to 10 BC. Qin Shi Huang died during one of his imperial journeys, but something remarkable happened. Next, the empire he had built with enormous force could barely survive him. Only a few years later, the Qin dynasty collapsed. A dynasty that had once terrified rival kingdoms disappeared remarkably quickly, but the emperor's tomb remained, buried beneath the earth. The army was still there, the bronze chariots were still there, and the central burial chamber remained sealed. Why has the tomb never been opened? This may be the most important question of all. If the tomb really contains priceless treasures and secrets that have remained hidden for more than 2 millennia, why not simply open it? Because opening a 2,200-year-old tomb is not like opening an ordinary door. The moment air and moisture enter, ancient materials could begin to deteriorate. Objects that have survived in a sealed environment for thousands of years could potentially be damaged in a very short period of time. And if mercury really exists inside the tomb, the excavation would become even more complicated. So archaeologists face an extraordinary dilemma: discover the secrets or protect them. The final secret is still buried. More than 2,200 years have passed. Dynasties have risen and fallen. Cities have transformed. Wars have become history. But beneath a massive mound near Xi'an, one story remains unfinished. Perhaps the tomb contains Qin Shi Huang's coffin, perhaps. It contains treasures. Perhaps there are miniature palaces. Perhaps there really are rivers of mercury described in ancient texts. Or perhaps what we have imagined for thousands of years is complete truth, and that is what makes Qin Shi Huang's tomb so extraordinary that we know he existed. We know he unified China. We know he built one of the greatest funerary complexes in ancient history. We know his army still stands underground, but we still don't know what lies behind the final sealed chamber. Perhaps one day technology will become advanced enough to allow us to look inside without destroying what remains, and when that final chamber is eventually revealed, we may uncover one of the greatest secrets left behind by the ancient world, because Qin Shi Huang once wanted to rule the entire world, and although he died more than 2,200 years ago, his army is still standing guard, and the first emperor may still be waiting for us to uncover the secrets of his tomb. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.